Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
Basement Politics with Freddie Vasquez. Tonight's guest, Yonkers City Council President Mike Cater. Good evening and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Tonight's guest, Yonkers City Council President Mike Cater, joins me in the basement tonight on Father's Day for a very special episode of Basement Politics with yours truly, Freddie Vasquez. So help me welcome to the show, City Council President Mike Cater.
And the crowd is up in arms.
And the crowd goes wild. Well, they know what true champion when they see one, huh?
Thanks, Freddie. It's great to be in the basement. But
Thank you.
Listen.
Happy Father's Day. I want to start out by saying that to you. Happy Father's Day. I know you're a father. I know you have a beautiful family. Actually, you have a big family, but I know you have kids there. And I believe 3 kids?
I got 3 kids. A daughter, Melania, my middle son, Marone, and my youngest, John Paul. Very fortunate.
Nice,
my wife
nice. And let me ask you really quick. I know when, they say this when you have more than 1 kid. When we had our first, it felt like 1, right? But when he had our second, it felt like 20, right? Now, when you have a third, does it feel like 50?
You have you lose track of time. Like you lose all, because it's a constant juggling. What you really feel like you're just constantly drugging. Sometimes you do want to. You feel like you're on.
You feel like
you're on something sometimes.
But sometimes you need to be on something when you're dealing with.
You're right.
Yeah.
But no, it's hard. And my wife and I were always talking about making sure that one child doesn't feel different.
Absolutely.
Be it if it's that extra hug, that extra ice cream cone, that extra walk, or who sits in the front, who do I hug? It's hard, but the goal is I want to, my wife, she's amazing. She goes, always show all the kids all the time love and nurturing, because that's important. I don't want any of them coming up with any daddy issues or anything like that,
Absolutely. And that's something that, I've had to deal with myself. So it's very important that I am a father that's very present. And as you know, being very busy, you're a very busy man. It can be difficult sometimes, making the time for the kids. So you have to really, well, at least me, I have to really make sure I find that time, right? And today it was Father's Day. I was thinking about this interview, but I had to find the time and go out with the kids and went to the park, and we had some fun today. So that's something that I always juggle. But anyway, let's get right into it. Mike Cater, like I said, City Council President, I appreciate you being here with me. Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to have you here. My show is fairly new, so I appreciate, someone of your stature being here on my show, and it really makes me feel great and validated. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Freddie, listen, the pleasure is all mine. I want to wish you success on this new platform that you're doing. You keep it real, keep it fair, keep it balanced, and I think that you're going good. If the Basement Politics headline doesn't work, you could always do Freddie's Boom Boom Room. So maybe that will get a little more followers.
I don't know if my wife will like that title. But have to run it by the boss. Oh, we lost Mike Cater there. We have the circle spinning. Anyway, we should be getting them back soon, hopefully. But in the meantime, I will say good evening to the folks that are joining us live. Carolyn Elizabeth Marie. As always, my wife, Andrea Vasquez. Liz, hello, Romero. So hopefully we'll get Mike here soon. Had some interesting questions to ask the City Council President. I did want to get into some of his history here in Yonkers. I know the Cater family is from Yonkers. They've been here a very long time. They've actually grew up on the same street that I grew up on. And that's something I wanted to speak to Mike about. I also wanted to touch on you know, some his early background, you know, in terms of education, his career experiences, and also what led him to get into politics, right? And also how has it been his first term? And as many of you have may have already seen, you know, this election has been getting a little rough, but that's something also I wanted to touch on. But I think that you know, as I and Mike and I were talking earlier, you know, people are really recognizing that a lot of the mudslinging is just that. It's mudslinging. It's negative. You know, it's just negative attacks in order to manipulate the votes, right? Manipulate voters, influence their decision making, and we have to strictly focus on the issues, focus on the facts, and let's see what the candidates have done if they've, you know, if they're running for reelection. I'm sorry, one second. Oh, right. Well, I think we're having Mike actually here he is. He's joining us back. My wife was she's like my producer, technical support issue. But let me bring Mike back in. There you go.
Hey, Fred, I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
I had to switch from laptop to I'm on the phone now. I see you. I hear you.
I got you. I saw your son in the background there. Was he helping you with the technology like my kids do?
Exactly. They said, you know, if you want to do it, I'll do it. If you want to do it right, I go to my wife or my kids.
That's right. Well, let's get right into it. I wanted to talk about, you know, your early days in Yonkers. Tell me where your family is from. And, you know, obviously we've spoken about this, you know, we grew up on the same street, but I wanted you to kind of, you know, let the audience know, let the viewers know where the Cater family originated.
Yeah. My parents moved to Yonkers in 1964. And, you know, they came pretty much as newlyweds, a young couple. And, you know, they've always moved in Yonkers, but they've been everywhere, you know, from Orchard Street to Ravine, you know, Beach Street, you know, they were, you know, off Riverdale Avenue, Buena Vista, Croton Terrace. And that's where I was born. It was on Buena Vista, where I still refer to as BVA. I was, you know, we used to call it Sunset Park, but you know, for anyone that grow there, but it's called O'Boyle Park. At the end, you know, right past got Vark, Harriet, and then the end, and those were the good old days, man. You know, it really was. It helped shape who we, who we were. You know, I'm the youngest of 7, and the 2 eldest are my brothers, John and Issa, and then there were I have 4 sisters than me. So I'm very fortunate that even growing up, you know, I was always around my sisters because my brothers didn't want me around. But you know, that's where the roots are. Went to school. It's not even a school anymore. It's an adult education. It used to be called School 10, right on Riverdale Avenue by 85, right behind Alfonso's Pizza. And then after that went up to Groshon School 19, which is not even there anymore. You know, then after that went to Burroughs High School, junior high school. That's not there. You notice every school that I go to, it's not there anymore. And then I graduated from Lincoln High School, class of '94. So I'm a true product of the Yonkers school system, you know, and you know, it's, you know, that's who, you know, that's really who I am. And my entire family, my siblings, live in Yonkers, all throughout the city. My parents, you know, live in Yonkers. I forget, after 20 something nieces and nephews and the cousins, you know, we're all scattered, you know, wherever you want to go in the city. But that's truly where the roots are. You know, I'm a Yonkers guy through and through, you know, YO for life. Fred, I can't hear you.
Oh, I grew up on Buena Vista, right? 189 Buena Vista. And I remember the limousines coming through, right? I guess when, you know, Johnny was starting out the limo company. I'm sorry. Can you hear me, Mike?
I hear you. I hear you.
Okay. My wife says I will mute it there. But anyway, I'm sorry. I remember the limos, you know, going up and down Buena Vista Avenue and thinking how cool they were and stuff. So I've always, you know, kind of looked up to the kids. I remember us guys hanging out on Buena Vista and looking up to like Johnny with the cool limos coming down the street. So, you know, that's definitely something that, you know, I appreciate about you, right? I know your history. I know where you're from. You were raised on the Southwest side and your family has attained the American dream, right? That's what you represent. That's what your family represents ultimately, the achievement, the accomplishment of the American dream, right? Tell me a little bit about your educational background. Well, where did you go to school?
Well, you know, as I said, graduated from Lincoln High School. And after that, I went to John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And then after that, I went to Western New England College School of Law, where I attained my law degree.
Awesome. And what'd you do after getting your law degree? What was your first job right out of law school?
To be quite honest, I didn't recognize it at the time. Being fluent in Arabic, in 2001, it's considered a critical skill with the federal government. But I was just thinking about getting a job and stuff. I was actually accepted into Villanova to get my LLM, which stands for a Master of Legal Letters, for tax. I was actually going to become a tax attorney.
A tax attorney.
and I'm not gonna front. After the bar exam, which was like 2 days at the Jacob Javits, I said, I don't want this anymore. I don't care if I don't pass the bar exam. I'll go drive limos. With my brother, I got a job. I don't need it. Studying for the bar exam was very, very, traumatic.
Well, that's one of the top three, hardest tests in the country to take, right? You have the bar exam, I believe is the entrance to get your medical degree. And then you have, your MBA, right? The GMAT. That's, I believe, from what I remember.
Yeah, you know what? They are. And I get it, where like a lot of these colleges and universities need these standardized tests. But unfortunately, I don't think that it's a true indication of how somebody will be as a doctor, as a lawyer, as an accountant, as a grad student. The reality is I'm a bad test taker, always have been. And a lot of times what the tests do, and I'm sure they've evolved through the years, and I've actually hoped they've evolved through the year, because what it didn't do was teach critical thinking. The reality is, it's called the LSATs. It's called the Law School Admissions Test. I said that's it, LSAT. The LSATs didn't prep me for law school, and law school didn't prep me to become a lawyer. As odd as that sounds, how I became a lawyer was going in the courtroom, motion practice and learning about. It's almost like real estate. You know how you learn how to become a real estate lawyer? Do a couple of closings, and you kind of and they say the same thing with doctors. Doctors become doctors in when they do their residency and when they're in the emergency room, not necessarily in.
Well, hopefully by the time the doctor is working on me, he's learned a little bit, right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be the first patient or his last patient.
Right. That's right. Now, I one thing that was interesting I found out about you is that you are a family court attorney currently, correct? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do a general practice, but I concentrate on business litigation, and family law. What I always find with family law, there's always an emotional element. So sometimes people don't recognize, and it happens all the time. You have people that have children that are not necessarily married. So when you have a couple that's married, they could go to matrimonial court, divorce court. That's in Supreme Court. That's up in White Plains. Many times you have parents that are not married, but they have issues: child support, custody, visitation, family offense petitions, and their remedy is going to family court. Now, there's always a little misconception. Family court is actually a county court, so it's not a local court level, but you have 3 locations because of the caseload. You have a family court in New Rochelle, right on North Avenue. You have a family court in White Plains, at 111, the big building. And then we got a family court right here in Yonkers on, 131 Warburton.
Yeah, that's something that I'm actually familiar with, the Warburton one, because of some issues that we had, a year or so ago that we, thank God, kind of got through. But I wanted to ask you in regards to family court. Do you deal with a lot of cases of families having issues with CPS?
Oh, absolutely. Many times what happens is, and you see it, I don't want to say every case, but it's very common where you have parents, that are fighting over or disagreeing over custody and visitation and access, a holiday schedule. and there'll be allegations of abuse and neglect. And what happens is CPS is often many times called as a weapon, not as a shield. And it's not necessarily CPS's fault because they are required by law to investigate.
Right.
Is it abused? It is. And here's what's unfortunate: that falls through DSS, Department of Social Services. Their caseload is so large, that many times where I want to call them force alarms, or not necessarily even force alarms, where they're just done with pure intent to harass the other parent. What it really does is take away resources from the real cases, the real incidences of abuse and neglect. And it's really unfortunate that it's used. In my experience, courts they tend to be, they're able to read through the tea leaves and see what's going on over here. Freddie, just because a child fell and scraped his knee, that's not child abuse.
Right.
That's not child, that's what, that's my 9-year-old boy being a 9-year-old boy,
Right.
But it's very common, and it's frowned upon. Making false claims, it's, particularly if you file a petition, because a petition is what starts the case, to open up. You're verifying what you're saying is true. So it goes to your credibility.
Right. And, in doing family court, right, being a family court attorney, it seems like you have to have a little bit of advocate personality, right? You're advocating for families, correct? So is that, and I want to get into the politics in your political career, is that also what led you into politics, right? Getting, being an advocate, wanting to advocate for the people, wanting to, help those that need the help and create the change that's very much needed. Is that what led you into politics, being an advocate?
Well, you know what? I feel that public service, is an honor. And it was bestowed on me when I worked with the federal government, with the CIA, and even as a private attorney, helping residents. It's a privilege, particularly when I was taking assigned cases. So for anyone who can't afford a family court attorney, retain is the family, the fancy word for hiring a lawyer, you retain the lawyer. If anyone who doesn't have the financial means, you're entitled to, pursuant to 18B of Westchester County law, you're entitled to have an experienced family court attorney advocate for you and represent your interests. So I think it's a privilege. And as I got more into family court cases, and I did a lot of pro bono cases and giving free advice, I saw a lot of, I don't know if it was intentional, but I saw a lot of gaps and holes in the system. And when you try to address the holes in the system, it was, this is how it is. And when I hear this is how we do things, because that's how it's been done, it's like, the fingers going down the chalkboard. I do have to say that it has gotten better. Many times now when you're when you take an assigned case, there are some resources now. So, if we needed to do some research, we need to get an investigator, particularly when we have to investigate allegations. So the resources are getting better. It is trending in the right direction. But, what makes it also difficult is the standard, Freddie, in family court. It's an old standard. It's a consistent standard. What's in the best interest of the child? So, Fred, you give me your fact pattern, whatever it is. The answer could be one way. You get a different case for custody and visitation. The answer could be different because each situation and each family nucleus is different. So it's not cookie cutter. Coupled with, there's always an emotional aspect of it. So this is not like a business transaction. You had a business partner, you guys had a business and you're disputing over money. You sell it, you split it up. Many times in family court, there was a romantic relationship. There's a family relationship. There's an emotional bond, a physical bond, and when that ends, it usually ends badly, and there's emotional scarring, and again, not every case, but a lot of it. So
Right.
that's also what makes it very, very difficult. I remember, early on where I was like, wow, this is such a drain dealing with family court. And what I recognize, it wasn't necessarily advocating for, the child, or advocating for the dad, or advocating for the mom. It was all the emotional feelings that went in there.
Right.
You
And
know,
you were like kind of in the middle of all that stuff, right? As the attorney.
No, correct. Because you know what? By the time it goes into family court, Freddie, you know what? There's always an issue. If it was just, there was a pregnancy, and just gave birth, and I want to see my son, and or my daughter, or we lived together and we broke up. So many times the situation is intimate, and it's raw to you, where the nuances. Well, back on Father's Day last year, I didn't get to see, and as attorney, we're catching up. We're,
Right.
what happened here? Let's take a step back. When did you meet? When did you do that? And many times the best witness in a case is the actual parents. What happened? Where's here? Is it documented? Well, no, this happened, that happened. What is unfortunate is it's not sometimes what you know, but it's what you can prove. But again,
Right.
what's very fortunate in family court is the best interest of the child standard. So right now, what I do, Freddie, when I get and I give free consultations, is to be honest, I say, what are your expectations? So if everything goes your way, what is it that you want? So I kind of reverse engineer. What are you looking for? You want weekends? You want overnights? You want to take, the child to vacation? You want an order of protection? You want that, So sometimes I always try to set expectations, and then we set up a plan, be it through conferences with the court and, the other attorneys, and we try to set up a goal, a plan to get to the goal that the client wants.
What advice? Because I think this is something that would a lot of people would want to hear. What advice would you give a parent who is about to deal with a child custody case, or how should they prepare? What should they do in terms of like documenting incidences that they can then present in court? Just to make sure that when they do go to court, that their presentation is solid.
One thing I always say is, and again, because of the emotion aspect of it, if they're married, if they're separated, or, if they were in a relationship, is whatever you do affects the child. So many times don't make or do things based on emotion, or, getting, being vindictive, or getting revenge, or that one-upsmanship. It's whatever you do or say, do it in the space of no matter how old your child is, because
Right.
many judges say, we don't want to make the decisions about custody and visitation. The parents have to be able to work it out, particularly when they're so young. Like it or don't like it. you know Parents have to learn how to cohabitate and co-parent.
Right.
And yes, while lawyers, we could help draft, visitation orders and custody orders, and suggest, counseling classes and therapy classes and supervised visits and unsupervised visits and all these little tools that we have.
Right.
But ultimately, who's going to raise the child? Mom and dad.
Right.
Not a judge, and not, the attorney for the petitioner and the attorney for the respondent. So I think always make your decisions through the lens of the child. And number two is document your reasonableness.
I agree. Like you said, it's an emotional situation, right? So it can be difficult trying to get to that space. But I want to switch gears a little bit, right? I want to talk about politics. Why did you get into politics to begin with, right? I know your first this is your first term that you're just about done with your first term, and the first race I hear was a bit challenging. Also, I'm not sure if it's as challenging as this one, but I do know it was a bit of a challenge. But talk to me about that. What led you to get into politics, and tell me a little bit about that first election.
Sure. Again, going back to public service, I think that it's a calling. And I think that public service, if it's given to, if the opportunity is given to you, is a privilege and should not easily be bestowed on anyone. And back in 2017, I was looking at, options of where, and it wasn't necessarily a secret. You go and you build relationships, you build network, you get to learn the issues. Because when it comes to politics, you don't study politics, you don't study governance. You kind of know what's an issue. Sometimes you have ideas, sometimes you don't have ideas. And in 2017, the office council president was uh, was up for re-election, and I decided to challenge him. And to be honest with you, I was the underdog, and but I embraced it, and it made me work hard. And there was a lot of shenanigans going on, very similar to the shenanigans going on right now. I always make the joke. This is 2017 2.0 with some steroids on top of it. But I think it's very important that as a candidate, even though I'm the incumbent, I'm still a candidate, and I'm embracing the underdog challenge. I'm embracing being the outsider. And being an outsider, Freddie, in Yonkers politics is what I want to be. That's by choice. So what I try to do is focus on the issues that matter. Freddie, you're a homeowner, right? Be it your water rates, your quality of life. You have children in schools, and I know that both you and your wife are strong advocates for education. That's what I want to talk about. You know, Public safety. Look what's going on within the last 2 weeks. There was a killing yesterday. We had a resident literally beaten to death on Warburton Avenue a couple of days ago. There was a shooting on Elm Street. Public safety is a priority. These are the conversations that I want to have. I'm not going to get into the political shenanigans. I'm not a political insider. And to be quite frank, I'm not very good at it. Maybe that's my weakness, that I'm not good at the politics, but I know about governance. I know about the rule of law. I know about due process, and I know how to solve problems. And that's what I look forward to doing.
And yeah, and there's been a lot of negative mudslinging, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. I do want to talk about your first term, right? Tell me a little bit about that. How was it? How did you find the first term? How did it go for you? And tell me some of the things that you worked on, some of the highlights from your first term.
Well, going in again, there was no, there's no manual, how to be the council president, but you come in with the ideas, and you can't do nothing without establishing relationships. The reality is many people on the council weren't very supportive. I think many of them thought that I was going to lose. They had a relationship with my predecessor. And, on day one, okay, campaign is over, election is over. It's about governance. I actually was naive, and I learned the hard way that, okay, you put politics in one space, and then you could put governance in another space, but everything is political. What street gets paved is political. What street gets parking tickets and garbage pails is political. What park gets fixed? These are the type of things that, it's, to be quite frank, it was a little upsetting, but that's politics, as I say. So, you try to figure it out. Focusing on early on, I wanted to bring transparency and accountability, because there's a void, Freddie. There's a void in how the residents feel about city government. And I literally remember when I started doing Facebook Live videos, they were laughing at me. And I said, you have to understand, the electorate is different. Yes, we still have, I think it's channel 78 and 38, and good, keep it. But we have a brand new electorate, a younger electorate that are eager. And it's unfortunate, but we're going to have to do it. So between, right now, I'm doing this literally on my phone. The laptop shut down. I went on my iPhone and I clicked in. And we have to make it a benefit and make it easier to have residents engaged. So when people say, when you're not around, then I say, if you don't see me, that means you must be staying home, because I try to do town halls and connecting and hearing the issues. I was one of the first elected. Honestly, I did a virtual town hall, in my first year. And I remember Friday, I was a little nervous. And I remember I was speaking to, again, another great platform, Yonkers Voice. I was like, Ben, if we do this, this could be a little, think about it. You're virtual. We got a lot of cyberbullying and
Right.
but I was comfortable in my skin of who I am and my values that I was willing to go out there and do a virtual town hall on a platform that isn't mine. And since then, I call it a trendsetter. Many other electeds have set that space. Operating in a virtual world for me isn't new. As a solo practitioner with a law office, I constantly, run, virtually.
Right. So you had a lot of practice for this pandemic then, right? So when the pandemic hit, you were good to go.
You know what? And going into virtual, yes, because I literally did it in
Right.
2018. But you're never truly prepared for the pandemic.
Right.
And the first months we were literally paving the road and driving at the same time. It was more triage. What the hell is going on?
Right.
What is this? How serious it is?
Well,
And-
I'm sorry, not to cut you, but I just want to highlight that. Well, that is one of your highlights, right? As city council president, right? You are the first city council president to have to govern or be the city council president through an unprecedented event like the pandemic. That presented unique challenges that have not been presented before to a sitting city council president. What are some of the challenges that you faced, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, I remember it was the state of emergency was declared in March. And I remember a couple of days later, we had a stated council meeting. We meet every Tuesdays. And we were just the council in our technology. No fault. We weren't set up in a virtual space. And I was so hesitant on canceling that meeting because I didn't want to set up a bad precedent. And that's how I operate. I look at my predecessors, what was done, and I continue with that, or if there were things that weren't done. So within the next 2 weeks, we were literally up and running. And there was a lot of technical issues, feedback issues.
Yeah.
Somebody's camera wasn't off. I think we've all been on some kind of virtual call where somebody has their mute on and feedback. It was hard, again, paving the road and driving at the same time. But it was important that the city council still functioned. Legislation was still introduced. Legislation was still being passed. Committee meetings still going on. We did literally our entire budget process virtually. And I was very cautious because it gets very technical, a lot of questioning, there's a lot of moving pieces. We have outside advisors, and then we have, commissioner of finance, then you have department heads and slideshows. It's a big show. And it worked. It worked. So yes, while we were uncertain, scared, nervous, family and friends were literally dying. Every week somebody you knew was having it, but we were able to govern. It was good in that we were functioning, but for almost a year and a half, you kind of lose track of time. It also affects your ability to collaborate and see each other because one thing about governance requires relationships and talking and and group text messaging and things along those lines. And we finally went back into the chambers a couple of months ago, in April, which made things so much easier to talk and discuss. And Freddie, even though we were virtual, I know I could speak for all my colleagues on the council, both sides of the aisle. Everyone was out there trying to do something. The pandemic didn't create our problems. The pandemic exposed our problems,
Right.
particularly in the Black and brown community, where there was much more deaths, much more positivity rates, where, basic food insecurity was exposed, health inequity was exposed. And as a council, and particular council members, we work and we collaborate and we try to do things. It's very hard at the local level to solve every issue, but it's important that residents see, the council is aware of what's going on and we're trying.
And I mean, Look, I think that maybe a lot of people would agree with me that you did a good job, right? I think we got through it, the city of Yonkers, with no huge hiccups. Yeah, obviously, many residents lost their lives, unfortunately. But you championed through. You led the city council through this unprecedented event, and I just want to commend you for that. Thank you for that. I'm sure the city of Yonkers appreciates it. And now you're going into re-election, and you said you were the underdog during the first election. And this time around, I assumed you would be not the underdog. But it seems like very recently you've become the underdog. And I just want to point out really quick for those who may not know, your first election, you beat out Liam McLaughlin, correct? And Liam McLaughlin is currently the Inspector General here in Yonkers, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I know that you've had some issues come up, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I want to go back to you being the underdog. It seems like now in this election. How do you feel currently, and how does your family feel with everything that's been going on?
Well, I'm not surprised that I'm the underdog. You have to understand something. I'm very critical of the establishment. Freddie, when I ran, we spoke about change. We spoke about changing the culture. And it's difficult. You have to, we're talking about School 19 and BVA. I am the first elected official in the city of Yonkers that's a product of the desegregation case. I was So, and I remember when I used to catch the bus on the corner of Hawthorne and Vark. Remember those boulders?
Yes, I was there also.
Yeah. We used to catch that. I remember I used to go on the bus. I thought we were going on a school trip, but it was an everyday school trip. So there's a culture in this city, and I'm not trying to make a joke about it, but we're not changing a light bulb, right, Freddie? You go get a light bulb, you go get a foot ladder, screw it out, screw it in, turn on a light. We're changing an ideology, a culture, a mindset. And that's hard. We always hear about good trouble, necessary trouble. So yes, while I want to be in the sandbox, but my job is not to make friends in the sandbox. My job is to talk about the things that residents want to talk about. And that's a threat. My existence on the fourth floor is a problem for many people. Not because I'm doing a bad job, it's because I'm doing a good job. I'm following up on many things. And it should be noted, I can't do everything alone. I'm very happy with some of the relationships I have with my colleagues on the council. But when we talk about change, tell me what struggle comes easy. Let's go back to the history of mankind. What struggle comes easy? Because if you could give me an example, I want to learn how to do it. And make no mistake, this is a struggle going on. And yes, Freddie, when you and your friends, your listeners, when they go to the ballot box, you will see my name, Mike Cater. But what's on the ballot is bigger than Cater. What's on the ballot is the future of Yonkers governance. What's on the ballot is, are we a real democracy, or is it an illusion of a democracy? Do we really have a Democratic Party, or is it an illusion of a Democratic Party? Do the masses of Yonkers really have a say-so, or is it the few political elites that have the power?
Right.
And Fred, the last thing I'm going to say,
sure.
I'm going to stand up to those bullies. I'm going to stand up to those political cowards, because I know that I make my decisions based on my values, and my values tell me standing up to them is the right thing to do. I'm not going to make decisions on political expediency and what's the easy thing to do, or how to make friends. I'm going to stand up for what the people of Yonkers want. That's what they elected me to do.
And I think that everything you said there, I agree with 1,000%. Right. This is your first term. Right. And I think that you've governed through an unprecedented times. You were an underdog and you won. That when they thought you were going to lose, you fought hard and you won. And I think you're fighting hard again, and you're fighting really, really hard, actually. And I know that you guys have been knocking on doors, canvassing like crazy. And I know that there's also a machine that's also working even harder or trying to work harder against you. I mean, we're talking about robocalls. We're talking about mailers. We're talking emails. All right. And these all contain negative information, rumors, allegations about you, the city council president. And this is not something that it can be done just by anyone. I mean, this is something that, takes a lot of money, takes a lot of time and organization. And I know you mentioned in your interview with the Yonkers Voice that some of the attacks, or maybe all the attacks, were coming from a organization known as the Committee for Better Yonkers. What is the Committee for Better Yonkers, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. It's a great question. Committee for Better Yonkers is a political action committee. It's a campaign committee. Anyone could have one. It's 2-3 page application. You file it with the New York State Board of Elections. You file it with the Westchester County Board of Elections, and you're a committee. Many candidates who are transparent use their names. For example, Friends of Mike Cater, or Committee to Elect Cater. And you see it, Friends of such and such, or Committee to Elect. So when you see this name, Committee for a Better Yonkers, right? Who doesn't want a better Yonkers for you, for your business? But when you see who runs the committee and who's donating to the committee, that's where the plot thickens. The Committee for a Better Yonkers is a political committee that the mayor uses and has held golf outings, and other political friends and his big wig donors have donated to that committee.
Yes. And I've done my research, right? I like to research and verify things. And in my research, yes, I have tied it back to the establishment. And also I've looked at the donations, right, and the donors. It's all public information. And it's pretty much funded by developers. Right? Are they the ones that want? Are they the Committee for Better Yonkers? Right? The developers, some of the local businesses, including the Yonkers Brewery, also donated. Several law firms. So it seems like this is somewhat of a coordinated attack by the establishment to keep Mike Cater from being reelected. And in business, what I've learned, right, is that when people speak negatively of someone and all they can say to try and get the deal done on their behalf is by speaking negatively of their competition, it tells me that they are not worthy of getting my business, right? Because they have to speak negatively about others rather than sell themselves on their own merit. What have you done? Like you mentioned earlier, let's focus on the issue. Let's focus on what the candidates have done, what they're wanting to do. And that's kind of been my main message in all of this, right? I haven't been bringing it up necessarily to further or perpetuate it, but to try and encourage folks to ignore it and to focus on what really matters, right? And I think that's what, I want them to get, a message also from this interview. Would you agree?
Yes, it is. Freddie, when I started let me start off with this. I knew that my path will never be easy. And on November of 2017, when I declared victory, I extended an olive branch to the political establishment. So the next day, I started my re-election campaign while governing, while building relationships, while maintaining a family. So when my re-election formally was announced, I was hoping to have an issue-based campaign to talk about, well, Mike, what did you start? What did you accomplish? What's your vision? A genuine issue-based. And I'm prepared to say, I'm not done with the job. And I'm not going to blame the pandemic on what I haven't been able to finish, but I'm going to say the pandemic has delayed what needs to be done. And I'm ready to go continue with that. However, no one wants to talk about the issues. We've had, Freddie, without exaggeration, between different community-based groups and civic organizations and homeowner group and even the Yonkers Council of PTA, what they want to talk about is, the gossip, the bochinche, the gutter stuff. You know what? Stay in the gutter. That's where you belong. I'm going to about the issues that matter. You want to talk about why I voted yes on something, why I voted no on something. Mike, what's your values on this particular issue? Where do you see this going? That's what I was hoping for. But again, that's not governance. Everything is political. And I think one of the viewers said everything in the city is political.
Right.
And we're going to stay above board. We're going to stay focused because that's what the residents want. That's what people need. They want elected leaders with a vision. And right now, my current campaign is relief, recovery, and reform. And Freddie, let me tell you what's that all about. Relief,
Tell me.
reform. It's about our homeowners and residents, about our small business, and reforming the Board of Education, particularly the Board of Trustees, and Yonkers Building Department, and entire city of Yonkers. Yonkers is the only city in the state of New York that works this way, and it's a reason, because the system doesn't work.
And I want to touch on that. I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to bring that up. Explain to the people a little bit about the way the system works, right? And the Board of Trustees and how they're appointed. Even the all the boards, right? The real estate board, and how all they are appointed. Talk to me a little bit about that. Who makes that decision?
Okay, well, we have many boards in the city of Yonkers. So when I refer to the firm municipal side, that's city government, and there are many boards: planning board, zoning board, parks board. There's a landmark preservation board, and I know there's some more that it's not coming. So just like any executive, the mayor has the absolute right to appoint anyone that he deems fit to serve on these boards on the consent of city council. And it's like that at every level of government, county, state, and federal. With the Board of Trustees, the mayor has the right to appoint with no oversight. And what's going on is he appoints his loyalists and people that are going to say yes, and there's no real true checks and balances. And here's what happens. I know both you and your spouse and many mutual friends who are a fierce voice for PTA and children and advocacy is, so their policies have no oversight and no repercussions, but it comes back to us. So we have to take the difficult votes, but they make the decisions that affect our student. Something is just inherently not right with that. And this falls under Article 52 of the New York State Education Law. No one is doing anything wrong. So let's be clear. This is how the law is set up. The Board of Education is a dependent school system. And what that means by dependent school system is it doesn't create its own taxes. It gets its money from two sources: Albany, right, which we hear about, the foundation aid, the formula, and from the city of Yonkers. So it relies on them. However, the policies of the Board of Education are created by a Board of Trustees that are appointed by the mayor with zero oversight. There's a problem with that. I personally have a problem with that. And I remember I wrote an opinion letter in one of the newspapers. And I said, the time for change at the Board of Education is now. They were upset with what I said, but no one said I was wrong. I'm going to say that again. They were upset with what I said, but no one said I was wrong. And Fred, it's not about being right or wrong. It's about recognizing there's a problem. I tried doing some research. What other school system functions this way? There aren't any.
So Yonkers it's unique in that sense.
Yonkers is unique in that sense.
Wow.
Absolutely correct.
Now tell me really quick, just to give the people an idea of how does that affect them negatively exactly? Give me an example of exactly how that affects the residents directly. Parents who have kids in school, how does it affect them?
Well, very easy. Freddie, your listeners, your wife, if you don't think I'm an effective advocate, and if I don't care about you, if I'm out of touch with the needs, very easy. You vote me out. You call me out, because I serve at your pleasure. I'm a citizen legislator. How do you vote somebody out from the Board of Trustees that didn't require council approval and was appointed by the mayor and answers to the mayor? Plain and simple. There's no accountability. That's a full stop. It's a fact.
Right. And I know, and correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Andrea Stewart-Cousin recently introduced a bill to give the city council maybe one of the votes. Is that correct? Am I saying that?
There was always talk. I'm not sure if something was introduced. again, with what's going on the last, couple of months,
Right.
but I don't think there's anything pending. I would love to have more oversight because I want to go and ask. The way you asked me, Mike, what makes you qualified to be a city council president? What makes somebody qualified to be a city council? What's your agenda? What's your platform? I want to ask the trustees the same thing. Those trustees are responsible for almost half our budget. We got millions of dollars coming in from the American Rescue Plan. How are you going to manage that?
So what is the qualifications? I mean, what do they have to requirements they have to meet in order to sit on this board? Or is it just, hey, you're one of my friends, I like you, I'm going to appoint you on there, and there you go, here's a job.
Well, no, it's unpaid. Recently, a few years ago, there was a bad precedent where a school board president gave himself a $15,000 stipend. Shame on him for that. While we have bus monitors and aides making around that a year.
Well, and I think that maybe they don't get paid monetarily, right? But there's some kind of a beneficial influence that exists there, right? Like you said, the board of trustees is pretty much in control of half of the city's budget. Now that's a lot of money. What is half of the city's budget?
Well, right now, I'm rounding it. I think our budget, we just passed it, earlier this month, was close to a little over $1.2 billion. That's with a B,
Wow.
2 billion. And, if you look at all the grants that the Board of Education gets, and make no mistake, it's important that we give credit to the certain things that are happening. I think that there's a culture in the Board of Education. And it's time that we have to look within and say, let's change how we function. Let's change how we operate. That's important. And you have to remember something. The people that don't want to change that are the ones in power. They're the ones that are benefiting. And right now, you have in the city of Yonkers, you have the haves and the have-nots. The haves are this small circle right here. You see that? This small circle. I'm not trying to be sarcastic, but I want to add some context, right? These are the political elite.
The 1%.
Yep. These are the good old boys. These are the ones that don't see a problem with anything because they're benefiting. Then you have the have-nots. See this big circle? That's the rest of us. And there's an anger, there's a frustration, and as an elected official, you must recognize and listen to that anger and frustration. The worst thing that you could do is ignore or minimize the feelings of your electorate.
And let's talk about the have-nots, right? Affordable housing. There's a huge need in Yonkers for affordable housing, and I think you're on the right side of it from what I've gathered, and which is where a lot of the actually allegations are stemming from, right? It's actually, from my opinion, I believe it's stemming from your opposition of moving forward with the developments without at least sitting at the table and negotiating an increase in the ordinance. I believe it was you, Councilwoman Tasha Diaz, and Councilwoman Shanae Williams proposed a change in the ordinance, correct?
That is correct.
Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, right now, with what we see with all this development, particularly in Southwest Yonkers, we're seeing displacement, gentrification, increase in market rate. There's no jobs, and local residents truly aren't benefiting in the masses. So our affordable housing ordinance that's on the books right now is 10%. So best way to put it, this high rise is 100 apartment units. You get 10 affordable housing, and there's a percentage of area median income. That's a whole separate argument. What we're trying to do is double the inventory, make it 20%, because we need residents that are here now to buy into what's going on. And what's really going on is the residents are being left out from the work that's being done, and residents are being left out from an opportunity to even rent some of these apartments, with these beautiful views on the water.
The beautiful views that are currently being blocked, right?
Yeah. 100%. This is not, I do know that, we have 4 votes and we're ready to move on it. But every time we're ready to turn a corner, there's a delay. There's a delay. There's a delay. But eventually, the rooster's going to come home. There will be a vote on it.
And so I bring that up and because I wanted to kind of give people some clarity, pretty much a little bit of the background of why the allegations all of a sudden surfaced against you, not too, long before the primaries, right? It was kind of perfect timing. And I was also surprised to find out how they originated, right? It was actually one of the candidates who read some article in one of these gossip blogs, Yonkers gossip blogs, one of the gentlemen's, whatever who the name is, and then he reached out, took it on his behalf to reach out to the city council, who it seems like they jumped on the idea. They jumped on it really quick to kind of say, yeah, let's go and do that. And so I just want to, make that clear to the folks. I mean, again, let's focus on the issues. Why is it that, Mr. Cater, City Council President Cater, is being attacked? Well, one of the reasons is because of his stance on affordable housing, right? How did these allegations come about? Well, it was one of his opponents. He's trying to do whatever he can to win, right? It's a tactic. Hey, this is what I heard. Oh, and then you're going to have people just jump on it, which I thought was a little bit crazy. And then now you have to deal with the person investigating this, right? The Inspector General, who was your last opponent. Has he, I know there was talks of him recusing himself. Has he done so?
No, he hasn't. And Freddie, you've pretty much surmised it. This is nothing more than a political hit job, and they want me to get in the gutter. It's difficult to stay above that, particularly when your character and your integrity are being attacked, when your family is being attacked and harassed. But I just want to say something. And this is what the pundits are saying. Well, if he did nothing wrong, just show the lease and the checks. And Freddie, on its face, right? Think of it like a layer of onions, right? That sounds good. But here's the problem. I hope they're listening to this. And if they're not listening now, eventually they will listen to it. It's, if I give Liam McLaughlin, the Inspector General, what he's asking for, I'm making an illegal investigation legal. And I'm legitimizing their political bullying. And if they could do it to me, Freddie, they could do it to you. They'll be able to do it to a teacher, the custodian. They'll be able to do it to anyone in the city of Yonkers or any vendor. Plain and simple. There's something called due process. There's something called equal protection. Something clearly they don't know about. And that's why I'm standing up to them.
And that's actually something, listen, I'll be honest with you, right? When I heard about the allegations initially, I said, why don't he just show the payments, right? I mean, simple, let's go. Why allow this to linger on when we have the you have the primaries to focus on? But then you spoke about it, I believe in Yonkers Voice or somewhere, and you said, it's a fishing expedition, right? And what they're asking for is a whole bunch of information. And now for me as a business person and someone that understands privacy and wanting to keep certain information, from other people, understand why you wouldn't want to give that information up, right? I mean, it's almost exposing yourself. You're becoming vulnerable for pretty much a political witch hunt.
And you're absolutely right, Freddie. They're asking for stuff before I was even in office. They're asking for stuff about my graphic designer and the person that does my translation. This is, and for those that don't know, a fishing expedition, they just want a data dump. They want a bunch of information. They're going to comb through it, and they just, we got something. That's bullshit. It's not going to happen under my watch, and I'm going to stand up to those political bullies. It's not going to happen. It's illegal what they're doing. And that's important. So yes, while you're right, that go show your lease, go show some canceled checks, Freddie. But then again, they'll do it again, and it's setting up a bad precedent. And I'm going to stand on my values, and I'm going to stand tall to those cowards.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you are kind of speaking on it now, right? Because initially, I'm always looking to kind of speak on it, right? And initially, your campaign wanted, and you guys pretty much for the most part are taking the high road, because I haven't heard any allegations coming from your end. You've commented on the allegations that are being levied against you, but you guys have initially were taking the high road and not even mentioning it, not even responding to it, almost trying to just ignore it, right, and continue focusing on what mattered. But eventually, you felt the need to have to speak on it. And why is that?
But very easy. So again, my time frame. There was an article in a blog called the Yonkers Tribune, right? And it's been malicious on what they said about me and my family. This same blog has made allegations against the Board of Education. This same blog has made allegations against the police department. This same blog has made allegations against the fire department. It's made allegations against the pretty much any elected person in the city of Yonkers. It's made allegations against my colleagues. And it was no action. Now that it's Mike Cater, this same blog, unsubstantiated bullshit article, they want to act. So that in of itself is an issue, but we'll deal with it. A letter goes to the Inspector General. He responds the next day, to avoid an appearance, I'm going to recuse myself. Didn't respond. Nothing happens for maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then first week of June, we get this fishing expedition. And that brings us here. It almost looks like they wanted to wait to the primary. That way it becomes a distraction, right, with the negative mailers and all this. And really what they're doing? They're projecting their misdeeds onto me. Because if the Inspector General wants to investigate stuff, there's tons of stuff him and his friends have done. But we're not going to get there right now because I don't want to confuse the voters.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point it will get there. Not by you necessarily, but I think by the people. I think the people, from what I'm gathering, right, because I'm learning and I'm just getting to know things. But from what I'm gathering, the people are tired of it. They really do want change, and I think that's not just a sense in the air nationally, but it's also the sense here in Yonkers, in local politics. People want change, right? You have a lot of candidates like Carlos Burgos, you have Stella Suchow, you have London Reyes. I know he's not fairly new, but he's a community guy. And so you have people that are really looking to bring this community activism, this change to the politics here in Yonkers. And I think it's because they are seeing that in order to get things done, they have to get a little bit more involved in politics, which is why I've also kind of started to get a little bit more involved and learning about it. But I think being a new, you're pretty much a freshman, right, city council president. You're going maybe into your sophomore term, I guess, if that makes sense. But you're new to politics, period. You're not part of the establishment. And I think that's what makes you appealing to a lot of people, right? Especially people who complain about the establishment. In the primaries, you have two candidates that you're going up against, correct? You have Lakeisha Collins Bellamy, and you have Pete Spano, correct? Lakeisha Collins Bellamy currently was appointed by the mayor recently to what position again? I'm sorry, remind me.
There was a few of them.
A few of them. Well, I know that she's sitting in a position now which she hasn't been there long, and now she's looking to run for city council. And I'm not knocking it. All I'm saying is that, and I've mentioned this before, I believe that people should really get themselves settled into a position and work at that job. Show something before you move up to climb the success ladder, right? And I think that by you looking to be reelected and going into a second term in city council shows your commitment to follow through on what you started, correct?
That is correct. I want to, like I said earlier, I want to finish the job that I started, and I'm focusing on the issues. And Freddie, you just mentioned change. The residents of Yonkers want change, and this is what change is. It's not easy. This is not easy. And the residents need to understand that. If I tell you the hundreds of private text messages that I get from people that work within the Board of Education and within the city government and private residents. They're disgusted with what they're doing. So this election is not just about city council president. It's about showing a lesson.
Yep.
You know, we have Russia, we have North Korea, we have Iran, and now we have Yonkers. And the rest see through the nonsense. And on June 22nd, literally speaking, it's 9:03 on a Sunday. In 48 hours, the polls close. And a short time after that, we will be declaring victory for the people of Yonkers. This victory isn't about, for me, even though my name is on the ballot, it's for the people of Yonkers. And their message is going to be easy. We're not going to tolerate the political shenanigans. We're not going to tolerate the good old boys. And we're not going to tolerate political bullying, because the people will speak. The people have had enough, and they're ready for progress and moving forward. And that's what we're going to do together.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's what definitely the people want. And people have to look at what's been going on for the past 10, 20 years in politics here in Yonkers. Who have been the players for that amount of time? And maybe it's time to vote them out, right? And bring in new people who can look at the issues with a different, through a different lens, maybe a more refreshed lens, and actually bring about the change that everyone is talking about, like in the education, right? And with affordable housing, with jobs, availability. And I think that I have a good feeling. I think it's going to be a lot of change coming soon here in the city of Yonkers, and particularly in politics. But I think it's going to be a great change. And I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate everything that all city activists, leaders are doing in the community. Those that are out there now pushing for this change. You have a lot of support. I hear it. I keep my ear now to the street. I listen to what the people say, and for the most part, I hear a lot of positive things. I mean, the only negative thing I see is online. But other than that, from the people, I have to say I have been hearing a lot of positive things. But I also don't want to let you off easy, Mike. And I do want to just pose a question to you that was mentioned by one of the viewers, Steve Simpson. When was the last time the city council voted no for a mayoral appointment to a board? I guess he's saying that when you guys voted no, or went against the mayor and his appointments.
To be, and if you could clarify, is he saying like for like the commissionerships or like those type of appointments? Is that or the school board? I'm not sure what the question. Just seek some clarity.
Yeah, just when was the last time the city council voted no for a mayoral appointment to a board?
There has not been. I know that when there was a commissionership, I abstained from one. I do know that when there was a deputy commissioner for HR, there were maybe a no. But for the most part, the mayor is the executive. He manages the city. He runs the city. He makes all the operational decisions. And, he chooses his department heads, which are usually the commissioner, deputy commissioner, and he chooses who he wants on all these type of boards. And for the most part, they're ceremonial and, going through the vote.
City Council President Mike Cater, before I let you go, tell me, when you're reelected, right, what are you going to do on day one? And what are you going to do in the first 60 days as the city council president once again?
Well, on day one, we need to let the residents know that the government. Freddie, are you with me?
I'm here, Mike. I'm letting you speak. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. But on day, you know what? We need to let the residents know that the city is here for them. We need to heal as a city. We need to unite as a city and as a government. We could disagree politically, but we must find common ground in governance because the residents are counting on us. While things are opening up, the long-lasting effects of the pandemic are here with us. And the residents, be it if it's a parent, if it's a student, if it's our workforce, if it's small business, they need to know that the city council is working closely with the administration to work for them. And it's important that we don't let politics get in the way of governing for the people of Yonkers. And that's what we'll be doing on day one, healing and working together and unifying. Can't hear.
I'm sorry. There's definitely going to need some healing. There's been a lot of negativity out there. I've seen it a lot on Facebook, on websites and stuff like that. And I'm ready for this to move forward so we can come together as a community. Whoever's going to be in there can get to work on day one and make this community a lot better for all the people here in the city of Yonkers. City Council President Mike Cater, thank you. I appreciate everything you've been doing. I appreciate you coming on the show. But before I let you go, is there anything else you would like to mention or bring up before we end the podcast tonight?
Yes, thank you, Freddie. I'll make it brief.
Take your time. Take your time.
I want everyone to look at my 3.5 years as a whole and not a snapshot of gutter politics the last 3 weeks. While there was hard learning lessons, I gave every resident honesty and hard work from day one. And if I'm fortunate to earn your support and vote, I will continue to give you that hard work and honesty in my second term. This is not an easy job. We have a major city with major issues, and you're not going to make everyone happy all the time. But I want every resident to know, wherever you are on the political spectrum, wherever you are in political parties, that you have a voice and you have a seat at any table that I sit on. And I want to say, please visit my website, votecater.com, to learn more about me and my platform. It's going to be a platform of diversity, equity, inclusion, honesty, and transparency. Freddie, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak to you and answer very candid and poignant questions. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. There you have it, folks. Yonkers City Council President Mike Cater, coming off his first term, headed into the primaries June 22nd. That's Tuesday, June 22nd, this coming Tuesday. If you haven't gone and voted early, go and vote on Tuesday, please. He needs the votes. Candidates need the votes. Go out. Let's show that we are going to present and represent, and go out and vote and exercise our liberty to do so. Mr. Cater, I appreciate you being on the show tonight. It was a pleasure. It's great. Basement Politics. We're doing a lot of things. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I want to shout out the Yonkers Voice. Right. Ben and I, we talk a lot. So I wanted to give him a shout out, use some of his videos on some promotional stuff for you. But shout out to him. But Mike, thank you for coming on tonight. Please, folks, make sure that you listen to the issues. Visit the website or the pages that Mr. Cater there spoke of, so you can get more information on his platform. And he will see you on June 22nd, right? Hopefully you'll be celebrating.
All the way up.
All the way up, right? That's right. All the way up. That's right. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on tonight. I wish the family the best for me.
Definitely.
Wish them the best.
And enjoy the rest of your Father's Day, you and the family.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Thank you very much. Well, that was Mike Cater, ladies and gentlemen. So I didn't see anyone enter the raffle. That's okay. I don't want to ride with you anyway. But I will give a 5-minute period here. If anyone wants to enter the Lamborghini Dad Experience, right? Enter your name. Say Dad Watching. And in the next 10 minutes, I will send out an email to the winner. Leave me your name. Leave me your email address. If you're a dad and you're in Westchester, you have a chance to win the Lamborghini Dad Experience. One lucky person will get to come along with me in a convertible Lamborghini Huracan. Take a nice 45-minute ride up to Taconic. So again, type your name in, give me your email address, and someone will receive an email stating that they've won. So folks, don't forget, Tuesday, primaries, June 22nd, all day. You can vote. Go out and vote. Make sure you are present. If you want change, you have to be the change. If you want to see a better Yonkers, you have to work for it. I'm Freddie Vasquez. That was Mike Cater, City Council President. And one last thing, any candidate that wants to come on with Freddie Vasquez, send me an email, politicwithfreddie at gmail.com. And next week, after the primaries, I will be having more guests on, non-political guests. Okay, we will talk to people in the community, community leaders, community organizers, business leaders, people in the community, teachers, doctors, nurses, everybody. It's all about Yonkers. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Happy Father's Day. Thank you for joining me tonight. Have a great rest of your evening and have a great week. Be productive. Be the change. June 22nd. Make sure you go out and vote. Be there or be square.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
This Monday, Basement Politics Remix. London Reyes, candidate for Westchester County Legislative District 17, joins me again on Monday, 8 o'clock, for one last interview before the primary. Make sure you go out and vote, folks. If you want change, you have to go vote. Don't let the negative mudslinging affect and sway your decision. Do not be influenced. Vote on the issues. Good night.
Yeah. Hand hit records on my demo. Did y'all boys not get the memo? I do not stay at the Intercontinental. And anything I got is not a rental. I own that motherfucker. Figured out the shit is simple. My stock been going up like a crescendo. A bunch of handshakes from the fakes. But nigga, I do not wanna be friends though. I told y'all motherfucker.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.